right, I guess we can try to get started here this morning. So I read this morning this big article about whether you should drink water from a glass, how long you can drink it if it's been sitting in a glass. And so I'm thinking, I drink water from these little bottles for 2 or 3 weeks. Same bottle. I carry it around with me, same bottle. And look at me. Rosy cheeks, everything's fine. They said 12 hours. So you can leave water sitting on your counter for 12 hours. Then you're supposed to get rid of it. Now, the only reason they say that is they say that sometimes bacteria can grow. But I like my experience better. Tastes better. All right. I don't drink Gary's water. He leaves up here, whoever. Let's have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this morning, a chance to be together, to read your word. Bless us as we read this morning with wisdom and courage in Christ's name. Amen. So we're in 1 Peter, maybe someone new in the class, but we're in the book of 1 Peter, and we've been using this chart. Can you see it up there? To look at where we are in the book. We're over in this last section here in chapter 4 on suffering. I want to finish up real quickly this section on verses 4, 7 through 11 called we're supposed to love according to grace. And I could talk about why I named all these little paragraph divisions. But here he's telling us to love one another. Above all things, have fervent love for one another, he says. So that's because of the grace of God we're to do that. So we looked at these verses. Let's read them, and we're going to talk about the last part of this. We've already discussed this first part. Peter says in 1 Peter 4:7, but the end of all things is at hand. Therefore be serious or sober and watchful in your prayers. Above all things, have fervent love for one another, for love will cover a multitude of sins. Be hospitable to one another without grumbling. As each one has received a gift, minister it to one another as good stewards, as of the manifold grace of God. Then we talked about hospitality and so forth. And hang on. Well, I guess we let me go back here. He says in verse 9, I'm going to finish it. We talked a lot about this, be hospitable to one another without grumbling, or show hospitality to one another without grumbling. And this word hospitality is this word philoxenios, or philoxenia, which means love of strangers. Except that he uses it here to one another. So the most direct meaning of this would be show love to people who you don't know who are Christians, to one another. The broader meaning would be show love to people that you don't know, but he says to one another, meaning within the church. So I said maybe you should pick out people that you don't know in the church, and you should show hospitality or love them, because when he says, above all things, be fervent in your love to one another, the next thing he says is, in some translations, here where it says, be hospitable to one another without grumbling, it says, in verse 9, it says, use hospitality without grumbling. Use it. And I think that's probably a better translation. That's what it means. It's a tool. It's agency. It's a tool that you use to get something done. And that's the grammar of the sentence as far as I can tell. I'm not a Greek scholar, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night though, and so you got to take what I say seriously. Y'all don't know that commercial, do you? Guy's on the airplane's crashing, he takes over the controls. Are you a pilot? No, but I stayed at the Holiday Inn Express last night, so he can do that. He's so smart, he can do that. Anyway, use hospitality to one another. Now, this is a command, and it goes under the above all things. So we as a church and as individual Christians should be improving and growing in our love for one another. And one way we do that is by hospitality. And that's why we try to encourage each of us to get together with other Christians in various settings to take people out to eat, have them over to your house, spend time with them, whatever it might be. That's hospitality. Showing love of a stranger or someone you don't know. Get to look around the church building, the assembly, and see people that you don't know, or look through the directory and try to make a point of getting to know them and doing things together with them so that you know them. And you do it without grumbling. Now, let me jump ahead to that because we only got that a little bit last week. I wanted to mention this passage in Hebrews 13:2. He says, forget not to entertain strangers. Well, that word entertain strangers, although it doesn't use the word hospitality, in this translation, this is the New King James, is this same word. It's only used 3 times in the New Testament. This is another one. Forget not to be hospitable. I think that's some versions put it that way. Entertain strangers. For by so doing, we've unwittingly or unknowingly entertained angels. What would that be referring to? Well, that doesn't mean there's angels walking all around here. It may mean that, but I think it's referring back to the fact that Abraham opened up his tent and his life to these strangers that appeared at his door and had them sit down. He went out and killed an animal and had Sarah prepare a feast, and they sat together. And that was the angel. The Lord was Jesus Christ before he was incarnated. And he told him about destroying Sodom. This is the angel they entertained unawares. He didn't know it was. So you don't know who your brothers and sisters are, who they really are. You don't know who God is putting in your pathway to see what you're going to do about it. You show hospitality to people that you don't know. Most of us are pretty good with showing hospitality to people that we do know or the people that we like. We're not as good about doing it to people that we don't know. Now, God doesn't say, entertain strangers unless you're an introvert. And if you're an introvert, you don't have to do that. Or if you have social anxiety or whatever condition, you don't have to do that. It's not what he says. So you got to think about that. It's certainly something you need to think about. And there's a lot of ways to do it. Not everybody can do this, has to keep this command the same way. You see, my wife can do a much better job of this than I can. Well, I don't know. Years ago, and it's sort of the same, so we used to have people over to our house to eat Sundays, most Sundays, or a lot of Sundays. We'd invite people from church, people that we didn't know, or other people over, and she'd already have a meal prepared. She'd finish up. We get home from church, and she's trying to finish everything up because she wants to make it hot and nice and everything. And I would go in and sit down in my chair, and she'd send all the guests in there, and I'd talk with them. And then I heard the grumbling from some of the ladies. How come he don't help you at all, does he? He don't, you know. And I know you ladies, and here's the difference between you and my wife. Why I married her and not some of you. My wife says, oh, he's doing exactly what I want him to do. He's talking to the strangers, to the people. He's entertaining them while I finish up. I don't want to do that. And I don't want him cooking either. He's doing what he can do, and I'm doing what I do. And we don't have to fight about that or criticize one another about that. But see, feminism doesn't let you do that. Feminism says it's all, you got to find something to complain about, and it's going to be the man's fault. And so that's how, and it's so ridiculous. So you don't have to do the same thing as somebody else as far as hospitality. And I've had people, I don't know, let me ask you this, does this count? So we've had meetings or other things where some guest has come, a young man or another speaker for the week, and somebody will walk up to me and they will say, they'll hand me some cash. They say, I'm not going to be able to take this man and his family out. Would you do that? Would you take him out? Or would you, I know you're having them over at your house, will you buy some food to give to them? To whatever. Is that hospitality? Well, I think it's in the ballpark, isn't it? It's hand grenade distance, at least. I think it probably is under the right conditions. They were doing in that situation, what they could do. They didn't have a place to have anybody, whatever. God's blessed me with a house that I can have people over. Hasn't blessed everybody with the same thing. So I have to use my house for what God gave it to me for. See, I'm really superstitious about this. Well, as Michael says on The Office, I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious about it. I'm not superstitious. Does this sound crazy? I'm afraid, since God gave me, at such a good price so many years ago by the help of my brother and his own grace, a fairly good sized house with I built a nice big dining. Now that was my choice, to build a big dining room with a big table and a big kitchen. That was my choice. But he gave me that, and he's enabled me to pay for that. I'm always afraid that if I don't use it for that purpose, he's going to take it away from me. Can he take it away from me? He can take it away from me any day he wants to. Wouldn't take much, guarantee you that. And so I'm kind of superstitious. I'm using the wrong word. I'm kind of fearful that if I don't use the gift that God gave me for something that's for his purposes, you take it away. So you need to think about that. Some of you need to think about that. What gift do you have that he's given you that you can do? Because he may take it away. And if you use it, he may give you more.
And I do believe sometimes that we deny our gifts.
You do believe sometimes
that we deny our gifts, right? So having it,
we don't even recognize we have a gift.
or not using it, knowing we have it and don't use it.
By deny, you mean we don't use it.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yes, I think you're correct.
Not recognizing it also.
We don't think about that. We don't pray. We don't think about what can I do, and we say, well, I can't do anything. And so we look at someone like myself, a big loud mouth up in the front all the time, blah, 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 blah. And we think, well, since I can't do that, I can't do anything. I can't teach the gospel. I can't do this. I can't do that. No, you don't have to do. I don't have to do what you do either. But you and that's in this verse, Dee Dee. You know that. It's coming up here real quickly. And we'll talk about this using these gifts. He mentions it right the next verse down, verse 11. That's a good point. But he says do it without grumbling. I think this is so interesting. I think the King James says grudging, without grudging. Grudging is, and it's the word gogismos, which is, as it says at the bottom, to say anything in a low tone, gong, 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 an onomatopoeic word, which means it's a word that sounds like what it is. Zip, bang, wow, those are all words that are onomatopoeias. They're zip is because, why do we call it a zipper? Because it makes a zip sound when you use it. Even a gong is an onomatopoeia, the word gong. You've seen the Gong Show? Boom. Well, because it makes the gong sound, and that's why we call it a gong in English. And so this word, gogismos, is it's the murmuring of a bunch of people whispering low. They got something to say, but they don't say it out loud. You ever have that at work? Somebody's got something to say, so they murmur behind the scenes. But they won't say it out loud. Try that with my dad. It didn't work out so well. I would be complaining about something to my brothers while he's trying to talk to us, and it didn't work out because he'd make me say it. I didn't want to say it out loud because it's murmuring. It's grudging. So some people are finding fault, and they're so what does it mean in this case? By the way, it's the same word. Well, there's a bunch of onomatopoeias in the Bible, and they have to do with gossip and things like that. But in this case, what would it mean to use hospitality or be hospitable with grumbling? What would that look like? Man, I can't believe how much it cost me to have these people over and blah, blah, blah. Why do I have to be the only one doing it? And I don't even like these people and blah, blah, blah. And on it goes. Grumbling. Underneath the murmur, underneath. And I tell you what I think this has to do with. What's so funny? What did I say?
No, you didn't say that.
Huh?
Nobody knows how to park.
Nobody knows how to park at my house. Yes, I do grumble about that. Why? Because they're out in the street and my neighbors are going to hate me. Or you're going to get a ticket. And when I tell you people to park in my grass, you You can't park in the grass. What do you mean? I'm just telling you, park in the grass. God will give me more grass. See, that's my point. I have a sprinkler system, Bob. It comes on a timer. I put fertilizer on it. God will give me more grass. I have to put the fertilizer and the water on there, but he will give me more grass to grow. Just don't leave your car running on my grass. Pull up in my yard and leave it running. What do you think happens the next day when you're gone? I got a big dead spot on my grass because your catalytic converter is so hot it heats up the grass below there and kills it. Then I got a bare spot. So I'm grumbling. I say, I try to figure out who parked there. Yes, ma'am.
I also think of.
I don't care if you kill my grass. God will give me more. Go ahead.
I also think of hospitality with grumbling, being in the spirit of knowing we need to do it, but then complaining about it while we're doing it.
Yes,
Like, feeling convicted to do it because we know it's the right thing to do, but then also complaining while doing it.
we're complaining about it rather than seeing it as a blessing and an opportunity that we're doing. Well, it is a blessing. It really is. And so your life is made richer by all these things. And that is the problem. I think it's money, mostly. It is not cheap to be hospitable. Okay? So this week we had 2 birthdays in our family. My daughter and one of her children both had a birthday within a couple of days of each other. So I said, well, I'll take you guys out to eat. And so, oh yeah, that sounds great. Well, that sounds great, Papa. So where do you want to go? The last one, where do you want to go? Well, let's go to where I want to go is Longhorn. So I took 10 people to Longhorn last night for supper. Appetizer and dessert. So what do you think came out of my pocket last night?
$500.
Not too far off. Not quite, but a lot of money. So I had to decide if I was going to grumble about it or not. I'm not going to grumble about it. You know what? My grandchildren and my daughter might remember that when I'm dead. They'll at least remember Papa was good to us. That's all. So it's worth it. But yeah, grumbling. So you have people over to your house. See, and that's the thing. So since Judy, her responsibility is our home. That's her job. I don't tell her what to spend. I don't tell her where to shop. I don't tell her what to buy in general. I have input on anything, of course, just like she does with everything else. That's her job. I don't tell her how to cook the food. I don't tell her what the menu is. I don't tell her any of that stuff. That's her job. And she does that. If she wants to go to Publix instead of Aldi, that's okay with me. Why? Because that's her job, and I expect her to have wisdom and prudence about taking care of that. And she goes to both. But she knows why she goes to both and does that. That's her responsibility. And she does a marvelous job about that. I don't know where I was going with this, but a couple of times I've asked about certain things, and when she told me what it costs to have a certain meal for X number of people, I blinked. Really? Because you think if you cook it at home, what do you think? Well, it's cheaper. Well, it is cheaper than Longhorn, but is it cheap? It's not. Now, you can either decide that I'm going to grumble about that, or I'm going to do that. Hospitality wasn't... Abraham went out to his flock and killed one of his young animals. Did that cost him? Yeah, it cost him something. All the time he spent raising the animal and breeding the animals and raising the animal and raising it up to eat, and then the time it took to butcher it and to cook it and all that. It cost Abraham something to do that. Plus all the other stuff they eat with the meal. It cost Abraham to do that. So it's an inherent situation. About to eat, whether you give some, or else you do as a matter of hospitality. And you can do it with grumbling, or you can do it with thanksgiving. That's up to you. Gary, this is one of those challenging verses that Kimberly called this morning. Is it easier to obey God the more you're a Christian? Yes and no. That was Kimberly called in the radio show. Is it easier to obey God after you've been a Christian for a while? Yes and no. It's easier in the sense that you want to. You see a good reason to. But the longer you're a Christian, the more you realize what that means. And so it becomes harder sometimes. So anyway, I just challenge you to think about this. And because there was a complaint, Acts 6:1, there was a murmuring of certain Jews against other Jews. The Hellenistic Jews, the ones outside of Palestine that were in Jerusalem, were complaining about the Jews in Palestine. The Ashkenazi versus the Sephardic Jews, we would say today, two different types of Jews. They were complaining about each other. They were murmuring under the scene because they thought there was an unfairness here. And he says in Philippians 2:14, do all things without complaining. Here's the word again, gogismos, and disputing. Now, that's a big scripture right there. I don't do that. I fail at this more than I'd like to think about. Do all things without complaining. I can't drive down US 1 without complaining, can I? I can't think of the last time I drove down US 1 without complaining. Why in the world can't people just not leave 2 car spaces at a light? What is wrong with them? I can drive my van right in between them, and they're blocking up. I sat there through a whole light the other day because people would not pull up, and I couldn't get in the turn lane. Watch that light turn green, nobody there. Watch it turn red. Why? I can't do it. Yes, sir.
Because you're drilled in your head.
I'm what?
You've been drilled in your head when you go through your driver training that you leave it X number of feet between.
No. They're leaving 25 feet, Phil. They're not leaving 3 feet. Okay? It's because they're on their phone or they're just too old to be behind the wheel.
They take out the part of the formula that says at this speed.
Yeah.
He's not talking about when they're.
Well, and also,
Yeah. Yeah, but they leave out
it's
the part-
endemic. You see several people at a light. It's just crazy. It's like my biggest, almost my biggest pet peeve. But see, my point is, should it be? That's the point I'm getting. Should it be? You know, and here's how people, some people solve this problem real easily. They take Xanax, and then they drive. They smoke a little weed, and then they drive. I can give you clues about driving. You see a guy that's got Dale Earnhardt stickers on his back window, get around him. He's going to go slow. He gets his speed thrills from watching TV races. You see a guy with racing stickers, he's driving slow. You see a guy, whenever you see a hand out the driver's window, you better go around that guy. Because he's just a Sunday driver. And he's got his windows down, and so he's doing 35, thinks he's doing 65. Because it's so, I'm just giving you some clues from years of driving. Yes, Larry?
Old age, I am glad that I have lived this long.
You're glad you're not old? Is that what you're saying? You're glad you live this long? All right.
I'm glad I'm not younger, I'll put it that way. But I have learned that there are certain things in life I can't do anything about.
I don't buy that. I think I can do something about everything. That's my problem.
I can't control somebody else's driving. And there's certain things, if I'm going to get out on US 1 and I know what you suffer, there's certain things that I have to accept, and whether I like it or not, it doesn't change anything.
Well, I accept it. I don't run them off the road. But I mean, depends what you mean. Yeah, you're right.
You have to put up with people like me that leave at least a quarter mile between me and the next car.
I'm not talking about when you're moving.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about when you're moving. I'm talking about when you're stopped at a traffic light.
But I'm one of those slow drivers that everybody speeding around, blowing their horn at me.
There's a law against that, Doug. Seriously, Florida has a law. If you are in the left-hand lane, that's a passing lane. It's not a driving lane, it's a passing lane. And you have to get over if you're blocking traffic behind you. You have to get over and only use that lane for passing. Now you can get over to turn left, but you cannot drive in that lane if there's anybody behind you. They'll give you a ticket, and they should give you a ticket. Well, I'm doing the speed limit. Doesn't matter. The law says it's okay if they're speeding for them to go past you. That's the law. And because here's the reason why it's a law. Because all those people driving out there in that outside lane at the speed limit cause everybody to fly up behind them and try to get around them, and that's where you get all this foolishness. It causes accidents. Get over. Now that's the law. Don't like the law? Then complain about it. But I'm not saying this because I think it's bad. I'm trying to do better. And I have no idea why. Because I'm no paragon of virtue behind the wheel. I'm not a good driver. But I still, yeah.
I've always been a firm believer that cars should not be equipped with horns. They should be equipped with a microphone speaker system.
You know, and I've thought about this many times. I think there should be a way to communicate with that person in front of you. Your tail light's out. You didn't put on a turn signal. Move up some. You should be able to communicate with that person. Now, this might cost, you'd have to do away with all gun laws and knife laws to do that. But, yeah. And I want somebody to invent a U-turn signal. A turn signal that signifies a U-turn is going to come up, not just a left turn. Because they pull out to make a U-turn, and they stop dead, and then, you're expecting to go on. There's just too many things. You should be able to communicate with them, huh? Yeah. Murmuring. Do all things without complaining. It's pretty awful, as much complaining as I do about it. Judy will say, you did the same thing. And I said, yeah, and they should have yelled at me about it. And you did yell at me about it. That's what I tell her. Well, I got yelled at. They can get yelled at. You yelled at me. So she says, well, you do the same thing. I said, yeah. Should I have? If I can't ever talk about something unless I've done it perfectly, I need to just sit down and be quiet as a teacher. Because I won't be able to talk about anything. So you can't use the rule, well, you don't do it perfectly. What's that got to do with anything? It's either true or not true. It's right or not right. Doesn't matter about the person saying it. Up to always a degree to that. But anyway, do it without disputing. Why? So that you may be blameless and harmless, children of God without fault in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world. See, he's linking up this complaining and disputing with being crooked and perverse. That's the reason everybody's complaining, because they want theirs. They want their stuff, and they're not getting it. Anyway, the next verse then says, if anyone speaks, verse 11, this is where Dee Dee was referring to, I think, whether she knew it or not. If anyone speaks, let him speak as the oracles of God. If you're going to speak, speak according to God's declarations. Oracle is a declaration from God. It's used kind of in a reference as to the Greeks had the Oracle of Delphi and other things, which entered into discussion about Oracle of Delphi. But anyway, your speech and your thought processes should reflect the Word of God, the truth. And if you want to speak about things, you need to speak about things that are true and good in a true and good way. If anyone ministers or serves others, let him do it as with the ability which God supplies, that in all things God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. So if you're going to serve, then you do it with the ability which God supplies. I don't think he means if, I think he means when, in both cases. When you speak. Are we going to speak? Is this an if here that we're not going to speak? Well, of course we're going to speak. He's saying when you speak. And when you serve. Because he's already told you how to serve. You do it through the ability which God provides. So God gives each of us gifts. We know this from Ephesians, other things. And we have to use our gift, not somebody else's gift to teach, to preach, to speak, to minister, to be hospitable, to be a father, to be a mother. We have to use our gift. Now, the hard part is recognizing, I don't think you have to search at what are my gifts. I think you just have to look at what you can do, and we should always be seeking to do more and to learn more and to grow. I'll tell you something, they've proven it more than once. If you want to stay young, learn something new all the time. Be in the process of learning something new all the time. That's how you stay young. I don't care what physical age you are. You can be as old as Larry, as long as you're learning and growing, you know, and learning something new. The old people are stuck in the way things were a long time ago, and they've not grown at all. And you all probably know people like this on your job. They got on the job as a rookie, and they knew something from their training, and they never learned another thing in their job, the factory, or anything else. They don't care about learning anything else. They just want to get paid and go home. Now, those people become miserable to work with. They're a hindrance to everybody around them because they won't learn anything new, and they won't grow. And that's true in the church. It's true in the family, wherever case it may be. So you need to be learning something new every day, and then you'll see what your gifts are. You'll see what gifts you have. And don't be afraid to use your gift. You may think it's unimportant, but it's not unimportant. And that's why all of us need to be at as many services as we can so we can use our gifts for each other. We need to participate in as many things together as we can so that all these gifts can be used. You see, all these gifts. And you do it with the ability which God supplies. All of it comes from God. Maybe God gives you money. Maybe gives you the ability to make money. Maybe gives you being able to speak. Maybe gives you the ability to use your hands to fix or build things. You can use all those things to help people. All those things can be used for hospitality, and many more like that. Maybe gives you a good personality or good looks or whatever it might be. So those are all gifts from Christ. Anybody else have a comment here? Did you push 2 bells or 1 bell?
Just one.
I see we have a minute left. I don't know what I'm going to do with this minute. You think I could find anything to say in this 1 minute?
Sometimes you need to learn that the old way was better.
You learn that the old way is better?
Sometimes you need to, like you said, every day you need to learn something. For a lot of people, they need to learn that the old way was better. It worked.
Yes, and when you find something that's good and works, then you can stay with that, but you can move on from there too and learn, I'm not saying to change everything you've done, I'm saying learn some new skill or some new thing and do all that. So yes, you learn the old ways better. That's right. That's learning though. Okay, thank you very much. See, we found something to talk about for that. I just couldn't stop until that bell rang. We'll pick up next week and move on to the next section here.